Aloha mai kako, happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to Huewai Ola. My name is Kale Chang. It's my pleasure to be your host. Huewai Ola is a webinar series brought to you by Ahakane and Kanaeokana, a wonderful opportunity for us to strengthen our ohana by uplifting and empowering our kane, our Hawaiian men. Huewai Ola means a gourd of living water, referring to a man as a vessel of life guided by the god Kane. In Hawaiian culture, gourds also represent knowledge. In this series, we'll be introducing you to some extraordinary kane, cultural practitioners, scholars, leaders in our community. They'll share perspectives, practices, and advocacy in our lahui. Aloha nui to all our viewers. Mahalo for joining us today. As we get started here, please shoot us a quick aloha in our Zoom chat box or Facebook comments, and let us know where you're joining us from. Also, leave comments and ask questions throughout the show, and we'll do our best to include you in our conversation. All right, welcome to episode 18 of Huewai Ola, the Cool Project, making fitness a cultural practice to strengthen ourselves and to build stronger families and communities. Let's meet our guest for today. Born and raised in Kailua, Oahu, he is a husband and father of 2 boys. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for over 10 years and has a passion for educating and empowering others to take responsibility for their own health and well-being. His kupuna told him to leave the islands, to experience the world, but don't forget to come home and serve our Hawaiian people. He was a head strength and conditioning coach at a college in the mainland. Then in 2013, he married his beautiful wife and moved back home to Hawaii and started what's known as the Cool Project. He looks at Olakino as a part of his cultural practice in hopes to inspire others to build their cool body to live a cool life. Please help me welcome Daniel Aipa. Aloha mai.
Aloha. Mahalo for having me.
Thank you for joining us, brother.
Yeah.
Did you want to do something before we start? Or
Yeah, I was hoping that, since everybody's kind of tuning in right now, what I always like to begin with, like everything in life starts with our breath, our ha. The beginning of life and the end of our life is the ha. So yes. I want, while we're all sitting down, kind of hanging out, just want to have everybody to take a moment to reconnect with our ha. So I want to walk you through to a simple exercise, and then I'll kind of share a little bit more insights after this exercise. So from here, I want you to scoot up to wherever you are, to the edge of your seat. So you're sitting nice and tall, and shoulders back and chest up. In that position, I want you to put your hand over your chest and one over your pico. From there, in that position, I want you to inhale through your nose, nice and slow. Make sure you feel your pico rise. So inhale. Feel it rise and then hold it. And then exhale nice and slow through the mouth. Nice and slow. And inhale again for a 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for another 4 count. And then exhale for a double 8 count. Slow. One more time. Inhale, pico, and exhale. One thing when I talk about when connecting to our ha, we can relax now, is that we take our breath for advantage. It's like something that we don't fully take the time to reconnect with, but then again, it's something that's so powerful for all of us to understand the power of our breath and the power of the words that we use. One of my favorite ola no eaus is ikalelo no ke ola, ikalelo no ke make. Is the power in life is in words, and power and words also bring death. And it comes from our ha. And what I want people to realize is that when it comes to breathing, we are in control of how our body operates. Like we can calm ourselves by slowing down our breath, and we can really excite ourselves by increasing our breath. Being a father of 2 kids, when they're in that crying moment where they can't stop crying, what do? They slow down their breath. And I think sometimes we forget about how much in control we are of our emotions by reconnecting through our breath. So that's why I want to just kind of have everybody understand that the beginning of this begins with the ha. Everything, life begins with our breath.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. And it's a good way to get us into the right frame of mind and space for this time of sharing of culture and insight. Thank you again for joining us. What I like to do before I usually get into our guests' profession or cultural practice is to just talk story a little bit about where you grew up, where you're from, where your family's from. So if you don't mind giving us a little background on your small kid time and up to the point where you started getting into what we're
Yeah,
talking about today.
yeah. So I grew up, born and raised in Kailua, Oahu. My parents, Kailua as well. So we are a Kailua family, and we born and raised during that time when Kailua was kind of the little beach town that was pretty quiet. Riding the bikes all over the streets and playing sports. Growing up, playing every kind of sport you can think of as a kid, and getting into all kind of trouble. Running around the streets and playing at the parks, and living that kid lifestyle out at the beach and running around the sand and playing sandball fights. And luckily, I was raised in a family where my mom and my parents, my whole family, was very much in tune with the culture in many different facets. My mom is a hula teacher and has been teaching hula for many years, family, friends, and I grew up dancing hula with her. And it was one of those things where I was kind of like, personally, I thought it was too much of a thing for girls to do, but then I also found joy in it as well. And then there were some days where it was really, really physical. Like we'll do a lot of drills and exercises and warm-ups and constantly just start sweating. And like, it feels like I'm in the sport now. But hula has always been a part of my life. And still today, even though I joke around with everybody saying that I retired from hula, my auntie would always say, you never retire from hula. I was lucky enough to also dance Boy from Lapahoehoe for Auntie Irmgard Aluli when she was still around.
Hey.
Just a little kid, and just seeing her smile, that's one of the big memories of a childhood, a memory of hula for me. And then from there, being involved in sports and martial arts and so forth, that's where I kind of found that balance too between doing the hula side, and that's very soft and graceful, and it can also be very masculine and very strong as well. But then I got to really do that physical part where it was martial arts and the sports and football. And I just really grew up in that good environment of learning how to balance these different energies that we possess, our mana. And through the years, I kind of got into, graduated high school, went to college, and I didn't want to leave Hawaii. I wanted to stay on the island. But my family, all my aunties, uncles, my grandparents, they always taught me from a young age to go away, leave the islands, experience life outside the islands and learn as much as possible, but then remember to come back home to serve the people. And that always stuck with me, even when I left. And so in 2013, like you mentioned, I returned back home. But during that time when I was gone, I lost myself in that culture. Because, being far away from the islands, I live in California only, but when you're away, you feel like you lose a sense of that identity, being away from the islands, and I felt myself missing that. I felt myself missing that mana from the land that we get from out here, from being in the ocean, being in the mountains. My favorite place to go to sometimes when I need to recharge my mana is the Pali Lookout, just to feel that wind is blistering you and just like out there, I feel recharged in those moments. And I was missing that when I was away. And it wasn't when I came back home during one of the summers where I was invited to take part in a workshop for Lua with Pakuio Holo. And that is where I was able to really reconnect with the culture. And that's where my whole, basically I'll say philosophy or way of looking at things of ku started. And there's one story that really sticks out to me where it's about, for me, everybody always asks me, why are you the ku project? Why do you use the ku project or ku and everything? And I try to keep it as simple as possible. Yes, he's the god of war and many other things. For me, I look at it as a literal term of this means to stand tall, to stand strong in who you are and what you believe in. As a Kane, as a Kanaka, that's where I feel ku, I really connect with ku. And then there's also that other legend that people aren't very aware of when ku becomes a human form and takes part in a village over the years. And then when the village gets famine, people are getting sick and hungry, his family is sick. So he decides to go out and basically bury himself into the aina, to the land, and up comes the ulu tree to feed the people. And I think that's where a lot of Kane and Kanaka can really connect to, is like, that's right there is a symbol of sacrifice, providing protection, for the greater good. Understand that you're putting yourself into a situation where you can give back to others freely and without any, any expectations. You just want to give. And I think that's the true spirit of aloha, is that when you actually give without any expectation. But that's where I really connected with Ku. And, one story of that was when it comes to intention of being who you are, letting go of the ego. And we're learning a ha'a called the maha'u, which is when we basically are bathing ourselves in the streams, and we are transforming our bodies into the kamapua demigod, to get ready for war. And I remember we were going through this ha'a, and I was going over and over and over again, just like getting really nasty with it, just trying to get really physical, showing the senior leaders and our alohe that this is who we are. And they just kept saying, going over and over and over again, do it again, to the point we all got frustrated. And we're like, we're doing it. Our arms are black and blue. Like we're sweating profusely. Some guys are crying because we're just exhausted. And then finally he calls the senior class to come and show us the maha'u. And I remember at that point, I was sitting down, we're in Nu'uanu Valley, and it was very windy that day. You can hear the trees rustling and wrestling with each other. And
when was this? What year was this?
This was back in 2000, and I'll say 2009, nice. I think. Yeah, 2008 or 9. But that is when the senior class came up and they did a maha'u. And talk about chicken skin. Like you get the hair behind your neck stand up, but it all started with their breath. From the moment they took their first breath, all I heard was, "It too," and you hear, right from there, it was like chicken skin. And I understood what they meant by reconnecting with the breath, being there with intention, putting away all the ego and just focusing on the self, because I was so focused on being loud and being like, showing how tough I am. But they're like, look, you're missing the point. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for you. We're looking for you to be grounded, And I think that was a very strong lesson that I learned at that point of what it meant to be Ku. So, yeah.
Ooh, well, that's a good story. So before you started the Cool Project, you're already into fitness because you started getting into strength and conditioning. Did you go to college as an athlete, or you went to study?
No, so that's a funny story. And so it goes back to high school. I was in high school, played football. I was a center, O-lineman,
Yeah.
So, yeah. 5'7", 180, still wet, like kind of thing. But I was a lineman, and in my junior year, I actually got ILH All-Star as a center, and nice. Was getting some people to connect with me for football to play in colleges and stuff. But then at the end of my senior year, I was just burnt out. I was tired of being in sports, and so I went to the University of Redlands, and I didn't want to play any sports, even though the coaches were calling me up. Even the baseball coach called me up. I was just like, nah, I'm going to see how my first year goes. So I ended up working in a fitness center. And luckily, my first day at work, the strength coach at the time was from Maui. And then,
oh, nice.
Yeah, he walks in and he sees me not at football practice. And he's like, what are you doing? And I said, so I told him my story, how I was just burnt out. And he just said that, hey, have you ever heard about this strength conditioning? I was like, no, I never heard of it. And he said, well, it's basically you're in an athletic situation in the athletic department, working with the athletes, getting them better and stronger to perform. And it kind of just went from there. So that was back in 2004, and I've been in it ever since. And so.
Wow, awesome. So you had the approach of fitness from a Western point of view.
Yeah.
How did you start realizing that, hey, I can approach this from a cultural view and start intertwining the two?
It was actually from the get-go, because after getting into the fitness side of things and then starting to read more about what fitness really does for the body, you know, rather than just looking at as what it does for you, like your muscles and what you look like from the exercising, which is what many Western, you know, philosophy go. It's about when it comes to exercise and fitness. It's like a six-pack abs, bigger arms and everything. I took more into account of energy levels, how you feel energy-wise, your brain health, just overall health and wellness. And that really spoke to me, because growing up as a kid, you know, like I was always that young kid who was around all the aunties and uncles talking stories. And one of the most common thing I always came across was that they're talking about their health issues, you know, like, oh, I have the gouts, or I got diabetes, I got to go dialysis. And that was all I was really hearing. And in my family, you know, all those cardiovascular diseases is very prevalent. Like we have heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. And, you know, so when I saw that exercise and fitness could be a tool to help out those things, because as a young kid, you don't put those things together, but I was learning more about what it does for you internally. I was seeing more how I could bring it back to be more of a cultural aspect thing, to be more about taking care of our bodies and being there for our families through fitness and health. Because one of my biggest things that, and I always have a hard time talking about this, is when we have people in our lives that we love so much and we lose them way too soon. And one of the most common reasons is because of health. You know, they're so worried about taking care of others that they lose sight of taking care of themselves and their health. And that's where it comes back to cool. It's like, we need to be cool in order to take care of more people and do more things so that those people can go out. And it starts with us. And that's where I really gravitated towards cool. So that's whenever I coach people, it's not about let's get a six-pack abs, let's lose weight. It's like, hey, let's get you feeling good. Let's you feeling more energized, so you can be able to walk around outside with your family and be able to do the things that you want to be doing with your family and make a positive impact on your family and your community as well. So, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, man. I'm so glad you're on this show. This is an important message for our Lahui, especially our men. As much as we like to ku'e and separate ourselves from Western things, we're all guilty, including myself, of defining our success by Western standards, whether it be economical or material things, or the way we want to look is based on what we see on social media that's not from Hawaii. So the fact that you started with the breath, you know, that's so important, because most people, especially now, is like, okay, as soon as I get this Apple Watch, or as soon as I get these shoes, or as soon as I sign up for this gym, oh, watch out. You know, and you just brought it back to super basic. Like, no, you just take care of yourself from the inside out.
Yeah, and
learn how to breathe, learn how to stand.
Exactly. And then you can go from so many different things, from just looking at how a person breathes, looking at how a person stands. And rather than getting that Apple Watch that's going to tell me how I'm breathing or how I'm like working out, it's like we become so dependent on those things. So my approach is to be very much more independent of needing those necessities, you know, the things that people want to have, or that new fitness equipment that you think is going to finally get you like healthier.
This is it. This is the one.
This is going to be, this is the shoe. The other shoe wasn't my favorite. The cushioning was a little bit too off, you know? So, and then that's where like the culture part of it comes in. You know, I remember reading this old journal of a colonizer who came to Hawaii and wrote an essay about the physique of the ancient Hawaiians. And that one, I was just like blown away, because here's a foreigner coming into Hawaii, and they're writing all their observations and talking about, and I can't remember exactly who that person is who's writing the essays, but they're talking about how healthy the Native Hawaiians were, how lean they were, how fit they were, how strong they were in comparison to other places that he traveled to see the indigenous people. And I was just like, well, why aren't we here? Then why were we there, but now we're over here, where we have 160% more likely of a chance to die from diabetes and 68% more of a chance to die from heart disease, you know, where we're over here, where we were like the specimen of health, like we were like health right here. And I think what happened was that we lost sight of how fitness and health is part of who we are. So it's not so much about what we have to do. And I think that's the Hawaiian perspective has to change, or our perspective has to change of exercise, going for a walk, eating healthy is, oh, we got to do that. We should do this. Oh, we have to do this. The doctor said I got to do that. Rather than looking at it from that perspective, I looked at it as this is just what we do. You know, it's not like we have to do it. It's just, this is who we are. This is what we did. And this is our natural state of being, I think, Native Hawaiian, is taking care of our health. It's not the whole lokahi thing. I think many times we focus a lot on the spirituality, which I love, and we focus so much on the mental side of things and emotional, but we lose sight of that physical part. When that's where that physical part, everything's connected. So we're missing this one leg, you know, in that lokahi part. And I think once we can start seeing that our fitness is part of who we are as Kanaka, as Native Hawaiians, then I think that we can finally realize that, wait, I don't have to do this. I don't gotta do this. It's not a chore. This is just what I do. But switching that perspective, switching the way we speak about it really makes a big difference.
That's a great perspective, a great way to look at it, and a healthy way to do it instead of, okay, in 6 weeks, I'm going to accomplish this.
Right.
Why not say, you know, I'm just going to make my life better and therefore making my family's life better and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And I think that's because that's the hard part for many people, is that they want that instant gratification and they want that 6-week program that's going to help them lose however X amount of weight. But for people out there who try those, you always got to think about your experiences. You know, I'm guilty of it. I've done so many different things because I'm a big believer in experimenting and self-experimentation in order to help others people. But, you know, we do those, say, 6-week programs. Then what happens after the 6 weeks? You know, like my father always says, and then what? You know, so, and then what? But it's like you get those 6 weeks, and then within another 6 weeks, you're back to where you were, or maybe even worse. And it's because we didn't create those proper lifestyle behavior changes that we need in order to keep that lifestyle. 6 weeks can be, many of us can do a 6-week challenge, but can you do it day in and day out? You know, not saying that you have to go be like super fit person and everything, but it is understanding that it's a process and it takes time and it's a lifestyle rather than a sprint, you know? I think that's where, and it's hard because especially with social media and a lot of the information that's being thrown at us on a daily basis about get this in X amount of weeks, buy this program, get this fitness equipment, get these shoes, buy these leggings, buy these shorts, you know, and we lose sight of what's most important.
Oh, that's so interesting because, you know, as you've seen a few of our shows, we've been interviewing so many different loya or kumu or cultural practitioners that really dedicate their lives to their craft.
Yeah.
And the message that you're sending to our men and everybody out there is you can even be better at what you do if you focus on yourself and your health.
Yeah.
And take care of yourself first.
Exactly. And I think and it goes back to all these people who are very strong leaders within our community, like if they took care of their health and they got active and were fit, just imagine the more they could do and how taller they could stand and more who they could be, you know. And that's what gets me excited when I talk about fitness and health, is just the possibilities of the impact you can have on others. And you know, and I'm not a big fan of being motivational, inspirational, because, you know, for me, I'm a big believer that motivation is fleeting. You're always gonna be chasing after it. So it's more about kuleana. It's more about responsibility, less about motivation. Nice. And I think that's another perspective. That's another Western way of thinking, of looking for that inspiration, looking for that quote that's gonna somehow change your world, you know. But rather than being like, hey, it starts with me. It starts with you, the person who you're looking at in the mirror every morning and every day. And it's your kuleana. You can't be looking for some kind of motivation or some kind of sign to change the way you live. You know, it starts with you.
Thank you for sharing that. I do want you to share maybe a couple more things besides the breathing that people can do at home, especially during this COVID. But before we do that, let's get into talking about the beginning of the Ku project and what it is and what you do as far as a business and what you do for Lahui in general.
Yeah, so the Ku project I really started as just to be a resource, a resource around fitness and health, sharing my learnings, my findings, my experiences, answering any questions. So I really started off with just me giving out information and having the website, thecoolproject.com, where I would just share articles on a daily, videos on the daily, even on my Instagram. I'm constantly sharing exercises and thoughts about fitness and health, because I believe that fitness and wellness should be accessible to all. It shouldn't have to be something that has a price tag on it. Even though, like, from a business standpoint, yeah, I still have to run a business. This is why I do have coaching. I do train people and everything, but I take a more of a different approach. Again, it's not a very much of a Western approach to training and personal training and coaching, where it's like come one, come all. It's more of I want to get to know the person. It's, hey, let's, rather than, yeah, sign this waiver and you're in, it's, hey, let's meet up and let's talk stories. Let's see if this relationship is going to work out, because it's a mutual thing. And I think that's been my way of approaching many things, is talking stories with people, learning who they are as individuals, and seeing where I can help them, rather than lumping them into a class where everyone's doing the same thing. And there's nothing against that stuff, but that's just not the way I like to do things. I like to actually understand the individual, seeing what drives them and where they are, and meet them halfway, rather than being like, all right, well, you're here, but I want to start you all the way over here. This is the first day where we're just going to go hard and just go crazy with workouts to get you like feeling like you're out of breath and everything. Rather than being like, okay, well, here you are, let's meet you here, and now I'm going to take you and help you along the way, So I have a coaching business. During this COVID thing, we had to close down our physical space due to COVID, which, was a big challenge, and it was a big bummers as well. But right now, my focus is on just making sure my family and kids are healthy, and that's what my focus is currently with the coaching and business wise. But overall, I've always just started to want to be a resource for fitness and health that anybody can access for all.
Oh, right on, man. Okay, so for our viewers, for those of you who don't know, Daniel is doing great things for our community in the sense of, what would you call your business? Is it a gym, or are you a personal trainer, or life coach, or kind of all of the above?
Yeah, I just tell you, everybody knows me as coach. Honestly, I don't really like the whole label of personal trainer or like a gym. Yeah. It's more just like, I'm just coach. I'm just cool, like what, like I'm just Daniel. But it goes back to in the previous episodes with Uncle Keone Nunes, Suluape Keone Nunes, when he spoke about how people don't like to be called a tattoo artist, like they don't like that, And so I'm kind of found the same way. It's that I am who I am, I don't like the whole labeling part of it all.
And you can't label it in Western terms sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
The goals that you're trying to accomplish in a Hawaiian sense, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's more like my whole thing is just trying to understand the individual, and I'm not trying to help out. I mean, if I could help out the whole community, great. But if I could just help out one or two people, I'm happy with that. Now, of course.
Where was your facility? It was in Kailua?
We're on Kailua side too.
Oh, yeah. Nice. So
it's a good space, and it really was more of a space where we could create a place of culture and fitness to be one. So, I train a lot of Kane too, a couple of Kane, and it's more about them giving them, I think, that safe space to let go of that energy. Because we have all this pent up mana and pent up energy, but we have no outlet or a positive outlet that we find, which is why a lot of Kane find themselves in domestic violence, into drug abuse, right, alcohol abuse, and so forth, is because we have all this energy. Like I tell people, I mean, we are wired to have this aggression and have this, but yet we don't know how to navigate where to channel
it or just get it out.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I remember in your previous episode with Ka'eo and Pueo, you're talking about the ku and hina side, knowing where to balance and everything. And I feel like we could be so cool and so pumped up and so like amped up, but you don't know where to be Hina or feel Hina or feel like you can just be calm and release some of that tension that you hold. So I really had a space where I made it safe where people could let go of that energy that they were trying to release in a more positive outlet. And I think that's part of being that Hawaiian component too, is having a space where people can feel like they can strengthen themselves, but in a safe spot where the ego is not accepted. There's no sense of judgment. It's just you coming here for a purpose to take care of yourself. And that's all I really wanted to promote in that space that we're in.
Oh, that's wonderful, man. Oh, so okay. So speaking of Hina, I totally agree with you that the secret to a healthy life as a Hawaiian is having that balance between
Yeah.
ku and Hina. A lot of Hawaiian men think it's always ku all day, and and there's problems that arise because of that
Yeah.
frame of mind. But as far as your Hina side, I understand you are doing a little fine arts yourself. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so like for me, like that's why it was so interesting when I saw Kael and Puel talk about their weaving, and it really hit me when they spoke about, before the young boys became into the halemua, they learned how to weave and they learned how to, work with the ropes and all the weaving and everything. And I never really thought about that. And that really hit me because I was like, wow, because for me, I'm all about working with my hands. I like to be active. I like to be creative. So I've been looking for an outlet because now that I'm not coaching, I used to be coaching all day, every day, with seeing all these people coming in and out. So I was very busy and being physical. And now that we're in COVID and now I'm just kind of mostly home with the family, I'm having that void that's not being filled. So I was
Right.
lucky to find something, a more positive way to fill it by being more crafty and working with my hands and doing handmade leather work now. So working with leather and hand making all kind of different things and just exploring that area of creating something from your hands into something that you can hold. And, that's been more of like an outlet for me because especially during this time of the pandemic time, we're just shut down and nothing's going on. And there's so many temptations to do other things,
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
So I've seen some of your work. It's pretty amazing, right? So you're making wallets and little
Yeah, so we make wallets. I just
credit
been
card
making,
holders.
yeah, credit card holders, just wallets and just small kind of stuff for now because I'm still learning too
Yeah,
and just enjoying that process of putting work out there just for fun. Me and my
yeah,
a good friend of mine, we're like trying to just fill up our time with something positive that's more of a creative outlet because it's something to keep us busy and to keep us, yeah, just in a good space.
yeah. Okay, so in a professional setting in the gym, let's talk about that side for a sec. What are some of the things that you incorporated from a cultural view that changed some of the exercises that you might see in CrossFit or some other types of disciplines?
Yeah.
What was different about your gym?
So
What is different?
one of the exercises that I really loved is a med ball slam. So many people probably have seen this where you just pick up a med ball and you throw it into the ground. And
Yeah.
and sometimes you see people just constantly just go, 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 go. For me, it's more like we're not about go, go, go. We're about intention. We're about control. We're about being mindful of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so you take a simple med ball throw or slam into the ground. I would always tell people, inhale and a strong exhale as you throw it down,
Mm,
and take it one rep at a time. Because again, we're trying to go from the inside out. So when you become more mindful of the breath coming in as you rise up and your breath forcefully coming out as you go down, not only are you going along with the exercise, but you're also releasing that energy, you know, the energy that you just feel like is just stressed, So when people come in, all feel all tense from a day, maybe they had a stressful day at work or they're having a hard time at home, and they just need an outlet. But by giving them that sense of control of being very aggressive, it gives them a different sense of energy than they would feel as if they're just go, 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 go. And I think that's one of the biggest thing that I try to was very different the way I approach fitness is that we're not chasing after a clock, or we're not chasing after reps or weight and everything. We're chasing after a feeling. We're chasing after an energy. And was my approach to being the Hawaiian way, is that I'm not caring about what so much is on the bar or how much you're lifting. I'm caring about how you feel first, and then we'll grow from there. Because what happens if you have a hard day? Say, I have some families who have kids and they're up all night with the kids. Then they come to the gym and it's gonna be a hard day, but they can barely move or they're zombies. Or I've worked with nurses who did a 16-hour shift and will still come to work out, expecting to like do this crazy workout. But I'd be like, okay, well, how are you feeling? What's going on? Are you stressed? Where's your energy level? Are you exhausted? And then we go from there. Because again, it goes back to, how can I use exercise as a tool to energize people? Making a workout very, very hard is easy. Anybody can do that. But making a workout that it can energize and invigorate a person's soul and rebuild, recharge the mana, that takes time, and that takes a little more intention behind what you do, rather than putting something on the board and saying, okay, now go, do it. It's a little more of an intentional practice for me, where you're caring for the person, like you want them to feel like you're taking care of them.
Right. So have you ever, not incorporated into your training, but in your personal life, have you ever used the more traditional ways of getting in shape, like using pohaku or running underwater, like for,
I've done like
for diving?
Yeah, we used to have done like beach runs and everything. For me, that's one of the biggest questions I get, Kale, is, like Cool Project, the Hawaiian part and everything. So why don't you train with, like on my Instagram, I'm always posting exercises, but I get some people asking me, why don't you train at the beach? Why don't you run with the rocks or lift rocks and climb trees and so forth? And I get that question a lot. And I try to, tell people, or just kind of share with them my way of looking at things, is that, when the foreigners came, they brought something very important that King Komeo saw, and it was iron. And he saw it as a resource. And he saw it as a tool that was very effective. And that is how I approach my fitness, is that I see these pieces of equipment that are tools, and they're a resource that are available. Now, I don't have every single piece of equipment, but I have enough to do what I can do. And if I just had rocks, then I could do something with the rocks too, But that brings me back to when I was a kid. My father had a big pile of rocks in the yard, and he'll ask us, hey, see that pile of rocks? Can you move over there? I want to make a little pathway. But for some reason, that pile of rocks kept just moving around the whole house and getting bigger and bigger. And he kept on telling us, see that pile of rocks? I moved out over there. I have another project. But then like,
I gotta do that with my kids today.
Yeah. I want to put a project over there. You put in a wheelbarrow. Here's a wheelbarrow. Here's the hand truck. Load it up and take it over there. And then like 2 weeks later, I have another project. Put it over there. So, but it's really just understanding what do you have access to, and that goes back to like for everybody who's tuning in, is it's not about what you have, it's about what you do with what you have. Mm-hmm. I started the Cool Project, my coaching business, with just one barbell that was borrowed from my brother, a kettlebell that I found off of Craigslist, and a med ball that was almost breaking. And that's what my gym started off as, back in 2014. And then I was able to grow that into a space, luckily. And it goes back to, you work with what you have. And it's not, going back to what we were talking about too, right before, was like, okay, if I get this piece of equipment, now I'm really going to get in shape. The best equipment you have is your body, and so bodyweight workouts, if that's all you got, then that's all you got. And you got to take responsibility. It goes back to Kuleana,
Kuleana, yeah.
And getting to work. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. When I asked that, I didn't mean to ask why aren't you using pohaku.
Oh no.
But I've seen some instances like at Ahakane conferences or witnessing even Lua or other training where they use pohaku, and then it's kind of fascinating how strong you gotta be to move some
Oh
of these
yeah.
pohaku too. So
Like
yeah,
the closest thing I
interesting.
have to a pohaku in my place is a tire that I just lift up, or
Yeah,
you know, and then or a big sandbag. But yeah, no, and I think that's the way I train too, is to train people in a three-dimensional way. So a holistic approach, rather than many training styles are very front and back, up and down. I believe that our bodies are meant to move in multiple planes of motion. So rotating, going side to side, and it goes back to the Lua practice of, teaching the body to be mobile, nimble, strong, and agile, and be able to do different movements in all these different planes of motion, side to side, rotating, up and down, jumping, and just making sure that we can move in those areas. But now, how you get there is all individual on the person and where they are now.
right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's have some fun for a sec. We'll get back to
Yeah.
the workouts. But I understand you come from a family that has history in both hula and music. I saw
Yeah.
something either on the news or in the newspaper about some huge kanekapila that happens in
Yeah.
Kailua, or used to happen.
Yeah, it's my parents. So
That's your parents.
yeah, it's
Oh,
my
okay.
parents. That's my mom and dad, and they've been doing that forever, and all the uncles that are there, they've been the same uncles that I grew up with, who would play music while we're dancing hula and everything, and so, and I've been lucky enough for my sons to be able to enjoy some of their kind of kapila sessions, and sing their songs and sing the Hawaiian songs, but yeah, that's my parents, so.
And then somebody was a kumu that taught hula
Yeah, that was my
in your
mom
family
too.
too.
So my
Oh,
mom,
cool.
yeah, so my mom and her teacher was Auntie Bella Richards, and out in Kailua side as well. And she taught for many years, still teaches here and there, but just I was lucky to be able to learn some dance moves, and it's always there just in case. You always have to have that list of songs that you can dance, just in case a kupuna says you go and dance. So you still have that list of songs just in case.
And you have a few brothers and siblings too. Are they doing
Yeah.
anything similar to what you're doing?
So I
Or
have two
how's
older
your family
brothers.
doing?
So I
Hmm.
have two older brothers. One brother is a firefighter out in Honolulu, and the other one lives
Oh,
away. And
cool.
it's interesting because the oldest one, he's more of the creative side. So he's an artist out in
Oh, nice.
California. And then you have the other brother who's a firefighter, and then there's me, the coach.
All right. So let's talk about the reality of this time. If you don't mind, can you just tell us? I know you mentioned it before. How did COVID affect your business? Because
COVID.
I'm an independent business owner too, and it's affected me
Yeah,
considerably.
as a business owner, I was very fortunate because it was at a time where my lease was up, and
Oh,
so it was either I had to extend it or not extend it, and I was planning on extending it, but it just didn't work out that way, and it was one of those moves where I was like, okay, well, should we open a new space because there was other place that was lined up, or do we just close down? And I was really trying to pull that trigger on a new space because I was just like, no, I can't close down. I have I have my community, I have everybody. But then, we had to have a family talk, and that's where it comes on to family wise. And it was the family talk with me and my wife and I. And it's like, what's the best for the family? You know, what's the best for the kids, and what's the best for our situation that we are in now? Because at the same time, she also got furloughed. So it
right.
was a time at that moment where it's just like the best thing for us to do is just totally just shut down and not try to put on more expenses, not knowing what's going to happen. So it was a tough decision to stop, but it was also kind of a bittersweet one too as well, because I didn't have to, I didn't sign anything new, but it was still hard because from there the business has just kind of went down, right? My
Right.
business is a service business, and I have a lot of respect for a lot of fitness people
And
out
I would
here.
say it's essential.
Yeah, I know, right? And I have a lot of respect and a lot of for all the fitness clubs out in Hawaii, especially all the smaller ones who are still
Right.
going hard and still doing their online training, doing all these big classes through Zoom or whatever they can to keep people moving. You know, I have very high respect for all of them out there. And, you know, I appreciate that they're taking that push to continue going forward and building healthier communities. So. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's kind of a private matter, but we do enjoy encouraging and talking about people's businesses, you know, Hawaiian-owned businesses. So,
and you know, and that's why for me, as hard as it was to let go of the business, it was just the right thing to do for the family, and that goes back to kuleana, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's people asking already, and I'm sure when this show is up on the site throughout the week, we'll get more contacts. If people want to start venturing into your way of getting healthy, will there be a time when you'll kind of reopen, or can they contact you?
Yeah, they can talk. There'll be a time. The time is always fleeting, especially with the constant shutdowns and opening up. You know, when they did after the first shutdown passed, I was actually getting ready to, okay, like now we can get the space. And then then there was talk about the second shutdown. I was like, oh, shit, okay, maybe not the best time, you know, like, but the best place where people can contact me is through my website, thecrewproject.com, or through Instagram and Facebook, The Crew Project, or even my personal is Coach Aipa. And, you know, over there, that's basically where I share everything. One of my friends who's really into business, he's like, you're the worst business person because you give everything away for free, you know? But I was like, yeah, but at the same time, you know, people really want to work with me, they'll reach out and we'll talk stories and we go from there. And that kind of is just building that relationship first, and then seeing where can I go from there to help you out, and how can I help you out, and what exactly are you looking for? Because for me, I'm not a quick fixer-upper kind of a person. It's like, we're going to take steps, you know, and it goes back to my, this is a good thing for everybody out there to do on your own. And I call it the circle of influence. And the circle of influence basically looks at your whole week. All right. We'll just use a week as a way of measurement. And say we have 168 hours within the week. Okay. And that means that we have 3 hours. Say you work out 3 times a week for 1 hour. That's 3 hours. That's 165 hours left. That means that workout that you did is only 2% of your week that you use. So you have 98% of the time to fill it in with whatever else, right? So that's sleep, that's eating, that's your social life, that's your what other activities that you take part in. But sometimes people are so focused on the workout itself, and they lose sight of that's only 2%. You get the 98%. So if you have bad sleep habits, that's going to ruin your workouts. If you have bad eating habits, that's going to ruin your workouts. If you have high stress and high tension, that's going to ruin your health and fitness. So it's that bigger picture of the circle that you have to look at, is that if I have only 3 hours here, okay, well, how am I sleeping? And am I getting those 6 to 8 hours of sleep? Well, or maybe 4 hours. Well, what are you doing before you go to sleep? You know, it's like, oh, I'm on my phone. Right. Well, you should probably get off your phone in order to have better quality of sleep. And it's just taking that bigger approach and the holistic approach of people understanding that there's more to what work goes on in the gym atmosphere. The outside is where all the work really happens and where everything takes place, you know.
That's a great point. So as part of your business, do you incorporate Ipono or eating healthy, or do you collaborate with other Hawaiian businesses?
No, so I do help out with Ipono, and that's also from an individualistic standpoint as well.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that goes back to, so you have the circle of influence that everyone can do at home. They can just look at their week and be like, okay, I work out 2 times a week. Okay, you know, maybe you gotta go maybe one more day. But Ipono, a simple way for me is, I want you to take a 3-day journal of writing everything you eat. No need change. Don't make it like, oh, I gotta eat really healthy. It's like, no, don't change anything. Just be honest with how you naturally eat and how much water you drink, you know? And it goes back to like when your tutu's telling you to grab that, you know, grab whatever, that Vicks inside the medicine cabinet, you know, and you're like, I can't see it. She's like, it's right there in front of your nose. It's gonna slap you. It's gonna bite you. That's what we're doing with those 3 days. After you write down everything and you look at that list, you can be like, oh, my answers are right there. You know, it's okay, maybe I gotta change this. Oh, maybe I gotta drink more water. Just those small changes can make a big impact. So rather than starting from scratch, from nothing, and being like, oh, I'm gonna start this crazy diet, do this cleanse and everything, I want to get really healthy. It's like, no, just start where you are now and make small changes, because that's going to be more of a everlasting effect. So.
Right. Oh, this is crazy kind of like chicken skin moment, because as you're mentioning other episodes that you've seen, this is another cross post kind of thought. We interviewed Koa Heva Heva about mahi'ai and farming.
Oh yeah.
Um, and one of his biggest things that he was talking about, or the discipline of kilo, or observing the surroundings, the weather, the currents, the winds, the clouds, the rains. And what you're saying right here is, besides all of that, you got to do a little kilo or observation of yourself
Yeah,
internally,
exactly.
and writing down what you eat, what time you go sleep. That just basic things like that can start you off on a great path. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it just takes some small changes. You don't have to start like do a whole like revamp of things, because those things never last. It lasted for a little while and then you get burnt out. So making those small changes create a bigger impact overall.
Oh, that's great, man. So let's get into it just a little bit. People who are, well, I mean, we're all stuck at home on this second lockdown. What are a couple just things that you can offer or suggest for them to do at home in their own homes? I mean, not to start a whole regimen plan, but
Yeah.
just things that they can do, like you said, small steps towards better health at home. You started
Yeah.
with the breathing exercise. What else could they consider doing?
One of the other exercise that we can do is just to look at the way that we can move overall. So Kale, I don't know if you can do this, but everyone who's watching, if you can, just sit up straight again. So I want to move
Yeah.
myself, and I want you to put
Okay.
your arms out in front of you like this. Okay. From that
Okay.
position, all I want you to do, arms together like this here,
Okay.
and I want you to open up and rotate as far as you can, okay, without
Okay.
turning your hips. And look and watch
Okay.
your hands. Okay, so here you're gonna watch your hand go all the way across and back again. So feel
Okay.
those tightness and everything.
Yeah.
So keep it going and everything. So it goes both sides. So that's that simple movement. You can feel like, okay, my chest is tight, right?
Right.
Or my back is tight. So now we got to put in ourselves in different situations where we are out of that position, especially because we're sitting at home a lot. We're sitting down most of the day, right? We're not walking around. We're not being active. We're kind of just at home. So one exercise that I always tell people to do often is to make sure that you're doing those planks. You know, planks is when you're on the elbows and holding ourselves up in a flat. That is going to be a good one just to kind of keep that core tight. From sitting down a long period of time, we start to slouch. And that exercise, they found that does way better than sit-ups. Okay, like, so it gets the
Oh,
core
nice.
activating, it gets your low back working. And say if you can't get into that position, go on your knees, be on your knees and hold that position on your elbows. A plank's a good one. And then just going for a walk outside, you know, even if it's in the yard and everything, or being active, or you can take my dad's, way of doing things and get a pile of rocks and tell people to go back and forth in a wheelbarrow.
Great.
But I think creating some sort of movement practice within your daily routine. Ever so often have two young boys, and I use them as weights sometimes because it's like I become like their playground. So I'll do squats with them on my shoulder and the other ones on my hand. Like I'll just do all kind of different things just to have fun with them as well.
Right.
It's hard to go into specific exercises without actually
Yeah,
showing.
of course.
But
Yeah.
but that's why if people really want exercises, they can always hit me up or follow me on those different areas, platforms. And I basically share workouts every day. So that's.
And then we'll get the info from you, and then we'll put it in the comments of this show, and then people can come back and
But
find that information.
I think what we have to focus on too is working on the exercises that improves our posture to help us stand cool. So what those exercises are the ones that work the back of the body. Everybody's so focused on the front because that's what we see the most, right? The front.
Right.
But then working on the back, and the simple exercise of holding us here and then opening up and squeezing your shoulder blades together can really work on the shoulder blades, you know? But you feel that how that shoulder blade is not really working, but just doing that for like 20 reps, you'll notice that, wow, you're actually standing a little taller just from there. And our posture dictates our emotions, right? Like if we're slouched over, we feel like this, then we look like we feel more lethargic, we feel tired, we feel exhausted. But if we're like here, a little taller, we feel a little more energized, we feel a little more confident. You know, now we don't want to get too far back where our chest is puffing up. Now we're a little too much ego, but you know, it's finding that balance. Yeah. So
That's, and again, a great worldview or cultural view of this versus everybody think you just got to push and pull. So pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, you know, squats. I mean, that's important too. But how important is stretching?
You know, stretching is stretching makes people feel better overall. You know, I personally don't stretch as much because stretching doesn't make me feel better. Exercising and working out and pushing weight and sweating makes you feel better. But you can also build flexibility through strength training. You know, knowing how to squat properly in the proper depth or knowing how to hinge your hips back. That's also a form of stretching, just in the strength manner. You know, stretching is also another way for relaxation as well, you know, and reconnecting with the breath. So I stretch here and there, not so crazy, but some people do that I work with, they love stretching. So we work with them on stretching. And it goes back to working with each individual, trying to be like, okay, what is best for you? You know, like the diet, what's the best diet out there? The best diet is the one you can stick with. What's the best workout? The best workout is the one you can stick with. You know? And it takes time and it takes a lot of trial and error to figure out what works best for you.
We got a few more minutes. Can you tell me a couple of success stories of a couple of your clients and then things that you've affected positively in people's lives that you've worked with so far?
You know, I think a lot of it, I have one, and I'll focus on the Kane because of majority of the people that I've worked with are Wahine, you know. For some reason, a lot of Wahine have looked for my help, but I've also worked with a handful of Kane. So I'll focus on the Kane because I think they're the ones where there's a big changes. One of the Kane that I worked with, he was a bigger guy, you know, he had to lose some weight and he was so focused on losing weight and like getting healthier and like dropping the pounds. And I wanted him to change his way of thinking, to start thinking more about, I want to feel better about myself first. You know, I want to feel energized. I want to feel confident, because once you start doing that, when you feel energized, when you're consistent with your workouts, when you feel good about yourself, those things will come. You know, the weights will come off, everything else will follow. But the most important thing was that. But then what hit me the most was when the wife told me, you know, privately, was just like, she just said, thank you so much. You know, he comes home, he's been so much more calmer. He's not as aggressive. He's not as short-tempered, you know. And it's because we give them that outlet. You know, we're allowing them to express themselves and release that energy that they want to get rid of. Another client that I work with, you know, he had a background of substance abuse, you know, and it was another thing, right? Goes back to that energy. Okay, I have all this pent-up wired aggression and anger and whatever it is, you know, that's holding on to you and you're putting out in certain areas. His way was substance abuse. And it was, you know, it was a really good close friend of mine. And he reached out because he thought I was training again. And, you know, I mean, I don't want to say it was all me, but he played a big role, but he stopped all the substance abuse. He stopped drinking. And now he's like living a healthy and fit life with a family that, you know, is happy to have him around. And, you know, he's good with the kids. He's responsible. And, you know, he's, you know, that good friend of mine. Yeah, that was a big success story.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And it's so nice to see how, I mean, it must be nice for you to see that you're positively affecting people's lives with what you do, yeah?
Yeah, it's good. And, you know, and it goes back to what our kupuna did, right? Taught us, is that, you know, as a lahui, as kanaka, we're meant to take care of one another. And it's our duty to find out what we can do, whatever craft or whatever service we can offer in order to take care of the community. And, you know, for me, this is the way I can do that. You know, people are always looking for something, and I've been lucky enough to find that this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what gives me purpose. I think that's what another thing that it brings,
Yeah.
is brings purpose. And I challenge a lot of people out there is to have those hard conversations with yourselves. Is what is my purpose? You know, like, because we all have a purpose. We're all here for a reason. And it's those conversations we have with ourselves that really bring out what we truly are here for.
Thank you so much for joining us today, man. See, I told you that hour went by like
Yeah, I went fast.
really, really fast. So, in closing our episode, if you can just give, I mean, you already have wonderful little nuggets of wisdom all throughout the hour, but if you can just close us off with an encouraging message to the men of our community.
Yeah. Ona kumukua pau, I hana o ka pōkalai ki ku, e ia mai ke kai mai. Ona kumuli o pau, I hana o ka pōkalai ki ku, e ia mai ke kai mai. Ona la li o pau, I hana o ka pōkalai ki ku, e ia mai ke kai mai. Ona velo li o pau, I hana o ka pōkalai ki ku, e ia mai ke kai mai. Ona pua li o pau, e ku, e ola, a kao, a kanikola paula, haumaka ilo kolo pupu e. And that is, remember who we came from. Remember that we came from the darkness of great Akua, great Ali'i, great chiefs, great ancestors. And remember that we have to stand tall for them until the need of a king. So stand cool, be cool, and take responsibility of your ohana.
Thank you so much. Well, again, to our viewers, we want to thank Daniel Aipa for being our wonderful guest today, and thank you for sharing all your insight to approaching health from a physical standpoint, approaching physical health, well, and mental health and spiritual health through a cultural lens. We really appreciate your time, and best of luck to you as far as reopening your business soon. Thank you for joining us today, brother. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo, mahalo, aloha.
Aloha. We're going to do a couple of things to close off our episode this afternoon. Again, thank you for sticking with us over these 18 weeks of Huewai Ola. Please continue to support us. There are other programs on Kanaeokana that I do want to mention. Le'a Nui Nui, which is awesome, with Sister Malia. Aloha Rising, Kua Kanaka, Aikole, and of course, Huewai Ola. Ahakane also has 2 brand new shows for our little ones. Aha Opio for our teens and Aha Keiki for our children. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Ahakane and at Kanaeokana. We'd like to mahalo nui our sponsors, Ahakane, Kanaeokana, Hawaii Tourism through the Kukulu Ola program, Papa Ola Lokahi, and Consuelo Foundation. During this pandemic, we do want to remind all of you out there, all of our ohana, especially our men who don't usually like to ask for help. It's okay. You know, it's a kako thing. There is help out there. All you need to do is ask. If you ever need assistance, there are resources, including this page right here. We do have 211 new COVID cases today. So as part of all of our kumuhula and the lahui at large that have started these different movements, including Lahui Kanaka, the kapu is still in full effect. If you're proud to be Hawaiian, keep your community healthy, wear your masks, stay home. There's availability for testing. There's some resources on this page as well for if you need help during this time. There's also new job postings at Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center if you are ready to start working again, and Child Care Connection Hawaii as well. Otherwise, if you have a moment, please help us improve Huewai Ola weekly by taking a short survey. We've included, here's a page for it, but it's also in our comments. It'll just take a minute or two, and it'll help us get better every week so we can better serve you, our lahui, our community out there. Otherwise, again, thank you for joining us. We're here every Friday at 2 p.m. on Kanaeokana's Facebook or website, also Ahakane's Facebook. Thank you so much to Daniel Aipa. Thank you to our viewers. We'll see you next week at 2 p.m. Mahalo nui and aloha.